Most people believe the safest place around their home is the backyard. It's where children laugh, where families gather, where nothing truly bad is supposed to happen. But sometimes, the most terrifying things don't hide deep inside dark forests. Sometimes, they're waiting only a few steps outside your back door. This happened to Nathan Brooks during the summer of 2023 in Portland, Oregon. Nathan had recently moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood with his wife Emily and their 6-year-old daughter Sophie. The house wasn't expensive, it wasn't perfect, but there was one thing that immediately made Sophie fall in love with it. An old wooden swing hanging beneath a giant maple tree in the backyard. Every evening after dinner, she'd run outside and spend nearly an hour on that swing. She even gave it a nickname. She called it the flying seat. For weeks, everything felt normal. The neighbors were friendly. The street was peaceful. Nothing seemed out of place. Then one Tuesday night, Nathan woke up around 12:43 a.m. At first, he thought the noise was coming from inside the house. A slow, metallic squeak. A few seconds later, another one. Squeak. Half asleep, he walked into the kitchen and looked through the glass door leading to the backyard. The swing was moving, not gently, not because of the wind. It was swinging back and forth with a steady rhythm. Nathan looked toward the trees. The branches were completely still. Not a single leaf was moving. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The cool summer air felt strangely heavy. He walked across the damp grass. The swing slowly lost momentum until it came to a complete stop. He searched behind the maple tree, behind the storage shed, along the wooden fence. Nothing, no footprints, no animals, no sign that anyone had been there. Embarrassed for frightening himself, he returned inside and convinced himself it had simply been the chain settling. For the next 2 nights, nothing happened. Then, on Friday, the sound returned. Only this time, it wasn't just the swing. Nathan also heard what sounded like very slow footsteps. One step at a time. He rushed to the back window. Again, the swing was moving, but the yard looked completely empty. Instead of going outside, he opened the security camera app connected to the backyard. The recording showed exactly what he was seeing through the window. An empty yard, a moving swing. Then, at exactly 12:47 a.m., the camera image glitched for less than a second. When it cleared, someone was standing behind the swing. A tall figure, completely motionless. Its face couldn't be seen. Its body seemed darker than the night around it. Nathan replayed the clip. Again and again. The figure never walked into frame. It never moved. It was simply there, watching. The next morning, he didn't tell his wife. He didn't want to scare her. Later that afternoon, Sophie was drawing pictures at the kitchen table. Nathan smiled and asked, "What are you drawing?" She proudly held up the paper. It showed herself, the swing, and another person standing behind it. Nathan's smile disappeared. "Who's that?" he asked quietly. Sophie looked confused. "You can't see him?" Nathan felt his heartbeat quicken. "See who?" She answered so casually, it made his blood run cold. "The tall man by the swing. He says he only comes when you are asleep." Nathan immediately looked through the kitchen window. The backyard was empty. The swing wasn't moving. Everything looked perfectly normal. But later that night, before locking the back door, Nathan noticed something he was certain hadn't been there before. Fresh, muddy footprints. They started near the swing and ended right outside the back door. There were no footprints leading away, only toward the house. Nathan slowly looked up at the dark glass in the back door, and for just a second, he thought he saw a tall shadow standing behind his own reflection. Then, it was gone. Ryan Carter had lived in the same house in Columbus, Ohio for almost 7 years. His backyard wasn't anything special: a wooden privacy fence, a small fire pit, and an old oak tree that dropped leaves every autumn. It was the kind of backyard where nothing unusual was ever supposed to happen. Until October of 2022, it started on a cold Friday night. At exactly 3:03 a.m., Ryan woke to 3 loud knocks. Knock, knock, knock. They weren't coming from the front door. They were coming from the backyard fence. Half asleep, Ryan looked out his bedroom window. Nothing. The backyard was completely empty. Thinking it was just kids playing a prank, he went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. 3 knocks, always exactly at 3:03 a.m. This time, Ryan grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The air was freezing. The backyard was silent. He slowly walked toward the fence. Nothing. No footprints. No broken boards. No sign that anyone had been there. For nearly a week, the knocking continued, every single night. Always 3 knocks. Never 4. Never 2. Exactly 3. Ryan eventually installed a motion-activated security camera facing the fence. He was convinced he'd finally catch whoever was doing it. The first 2 nights, nothing happened. Then on the 3rd night, the notification appeared on his phone. Motion detected. Backyard. Ryan opened the recording. The camera showed the empty fence. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then, 3 loud knocks echoed through the microphone. Knock, knock, knock. But the fence never shook. No person appeared. No animal crossed the yard. The sound was there, yet nothing had touched the wood. Ryan replayed the footage over and over. The sound was real. The movement wasn't. The next morning, he mentioned it to his elderly neighbor. The old man became strangely quiet. After a long pause, he finally said, "You're hearing it too." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man looked toward the fence and whispered, "The family who lived there before you moved away because of those knocks." Ryan laughed nervously. He assumed it was just another neighborhood ghost story, until the following weekend. While cleaning leaves near the fence, he noticed fresh, muddy footprints. They came from the woods behind the property. They stopped directly in front of the fence. There were no footprints leading back, only toward it. That night, Ryan decided to stay awake. At 3:02 a.m., he stood by the kitchen window with every light turned off. The backyard looked completely still. Then, knock, knock, knock. Ryan rushed outside. Before the final echo disappeared, the flashlight beam swept across the yard. Nothing. As he turned to walk back, he froze. On the inside of the fence, written in fresh mud, were 4 words: "Don't look behind you." Ryan's heart stopped. He slowly tightened his grip on the flashlight. For a moment, he considered running. Instead, he turned around. The backyard was empty, or so he thought. Just before he reached the porch, he noticed a dark silhouette standing perfectly still behind the oak tree, watching him. The flashlight flickered once, twice. When the light came back, the figure was gone. Ryan never heard the knocking again, but every October, 3 fresh, muddy handprints appear on the inside of that same fence, no matter how many times he washes them away. Most people never think about what's underneath their backyard deck. It's just empty space, dark, quiet, and usually forgotten. But for Lucas Miller, that forgotten space became the most terrifying part of his home. This happened during the spring of 2024 in Boise, Idaho. Lucas had bought a small house on the edge of town after his divorce. It wasn't a new home. The realtor even joked that the backyard deck had more history than the house itself. Lucas laughed. At the time, he had no idea how true that statement would become. For the first month, everything was normal. Every evening after work, he'd sit on the deck with a cup of coffee, enjoying the peaceful neighborhood, until one rainy Thursday night, just after midnight, he heard something beneath him. Scratch, scratch, scratch. At first, he assumed it was a raccoon. He grabbed a flashlight and shined it through the gaps in the wooden boards. Nothing. Only darkness. The sound stopped. The next night, it came back. Only this time, it wasn't scratching. It sounded like someone slowly crawling across the dirt. Lucas called animal control. The next morning, they searched beneath the deck. No animals, no nests, nothing. The workers smiled and said, "Old houses make strange noises." Lucas tried to believe him, but every night, the sounds grew closer. Then something changed. One Saturday morning, Lucas stepped into the backyard and noticed his trash can had been moved nearly 10 feet from where he had left it. He checked the security camera. At 2:18 a.m., the motion sensor activated. The camera showed the backyard. Nothing moved. Then, without anyone touching it, the trash can slowly tipped over. Lucas replayed the clip. Frame by frame, just before the can fell, he noticed something underneath the deck. 2 pale hands pulling it from below. His stomach tightened. That afternoon, he borrowed a small inspection camera from a friend. He slid it under the deck. At first, it only dirt, spiderwebs, old leaves. Then, the camera reached the far corner. There was an old camping chair, several empty water bottles, a faded blanket. Someone had been living there. Lucas immediately called the police. 2 officers searched the entire space. No one was there, but they found something disturbing. Everything looked recently used. One officer quietly asked, "Do you live alone?" Lucas nodded. The officer didn't answer. He simply handed Lucas a small notebook they'd found beneath the deck. Inside were dozens of handwritten dates. Every single page ended with the same sentence: "He still hasn't noticed me." Lucas couldn't sleep that night. He locked every window, every door. Around 3:11 a.m., he heard slow footsteps on the deck above him. One step, then another. Lucas held his breath. No one should have been outside. He looked at the backyard camera on his phone. The deck was empty, but the footsteps continued, slowly crossing from one end to the other. Then they stopped, right outside the back door. The door handle moved. Once, twice. Then, silence. The next morning, Lucas packed a bag and left the house. He never spent another night there. Months later, the property was sold. The new owners completely removed the old deck during renovations. When the workers lifted the final section of wood, they discovered something buried beneath the foundation, a small metal box. Inside were dozens of old photographs. Every single one showed the backyard, taken over many years. In every photo, the house looked different. The families changed, the seasons changed, but one thing never did. Standing beneath the deck, looking directly at the camera, was the same tall man, wearing the same dark clothes, smiling. No one has ever identified him, and no one knows who took the photograph.